What's up, everybody? How's it going today? What a day. I'm just going to sit down and take a break here for a minute. And I was going through some of my old paperwork, and I started thinking about some of my old writings, propaganda, political papers, things like that, because I was really into, let's just say, the corruption of everything, in years past. And lo and behold, I popped an USB stick into my computer to see what was on it. It was my wedding photos from 2005, and it had a bunch of papers I wrote on it. And I wanted to read one of them to you guys because it's just so appropriate to what's going on right now. I guess there's no name to it. It's just called Carpo Political Paper Propaganda. It's dated around 2012. I think I must have wrote it in 2011. And it mentions Obama in there, so I know it was during his first term. And there was a lot of division among people after the first election. This may have been within a couple of years after the first Obama election. And I saw a lot of the division that went on because of differences of opinion. And of course, over time it fades, but it never really goes away. People have a lot of different values. And I think that this current election has shown us just how different our values really are. And I've really been trying to process exactly what it is that makes people take such extreme stances on issues. I have my opinions on what I think about their opinions, and that's mine. I own that. That's totally me. I made judgments about people and try not to, but at the same time think if you're going to, vote for something that doesn't share your values just because it's different, like with what happened with Trump, I just don't understand the mentality. But after discussing it with many people, of course many of us anyway, have come to the same conclusion that both candidates were corrupt as hell, and that we were pretty much screwed either way. But this opens up a door. There's a positive side to this. This shows just how messed up things can really be. But at the same time, the people can pull through because the government doesn't really run the show. We know this. The rules are, there's a reason why there are so many hurdles to overcome in order to pass laws, because while it creates problems, it also protects us to an extent from people coming into office and making ridiculous decisions that may not be with the will of the people. But anyway, I should just read the paper first, then I can comment. So this is about 5 years ago, and I was in a certain mindset, obviously. So, without further ado, we should all be ashamed of what we have become. I'm talking, of course, about our skewed views on reality and politics. Long ago, I learned of propaganda and how it is used to persuade society to divide themselves along very hazy lines. The best way for the people in power to hide what they are doing is to put it right out there in the open and take a metaphoric shit on it. Then nobody will touch it. I mean, of course, tainting the subject to the point that nobody who speaks of it will be listened to. They may lose their credentials at best, and at worst, be killed off for knowing too much. But this was the old method. This propaganda works another way as well. Over the past 10 years, with the internet in play, things have taken a turn. As those in power see people waking up, they can no longer hide what they do. They have been exposed at every turn and on every level. So what is the next best thing to secrecy? Well, think about it. They find no need to expose some of the biggest critics to their power. They simply sick us on each other. Why do they work for themselves? Or why do the work themselves? It's like sending kids off to war. They infiltrate the Democrats, Republicans, the Tea Party, and even the liberal media, and convince us our neighbors are guilty and wrong for their beliefs. What I'm saying is that we lose sight of what's important, that we all live here together. Do you think if the Tea Party movement knew who was really running the show, they would still be there? Hell no. At least not 99% of them. We forget that it is misinformation and disinformation that keeps us at war with one another. With us distracted by minor differences in opinion based on half-truths, they can continue to plunder the world. We are all guilty, but it's not too late to realize it, and to admit to ourselves, we have once again been duped. People speak from their hearts, and you better believe the powers know this. They plant seeds of doubt among us and confuse the truths. But most of all, they keep us busy screaming at one another. This shit has to stop. And now. It pisses me off that people can be so ignorant to use words like liberal and conservative and think they mean a damn thing. The fact is, 99.9% of the world just wants to live happily and be treated as they treat others. Right wing, left wing, it's the same bird. We just find a way to confuse the truth, and it is pathetic. And when most people learn the truth, they would rather ignore the facts than admit they were mistaken. This is a disease of ego, and it makes me sick. I try not to get riled up when I write these things, but the feelings that arise are the same feelings that powers use to make us say things that are emotionally driven rather than actually researched. Most people just want a good life, but that is no excuse for ignorance. I have heard so much bullshit about socialism, communism, racism, and more since Obama took office. I heard the same shit with Bush and all the way back down the line. Wake up, people. You're being played hard and put away filthy. We're all being raped of the reality of what is true, for there are far too many issues to deal with. As long as we are fighting, then nothing will change. Learn history and act accordingly. Faceless cowards can post comments and create negative websites, print flyers and articles about how bad the other side is. But anyone who thinks those in charge are right-wing or left-wing, or even give two shits about voting, they are mistaken. These people have no God. They have no position except money. And when money, and when they have enough, they realize why they wanted all that money. Power. It's not the money. Look at the Koch brothers. Multi-billionaires that tried to resegregate schools in South Carolina. All the money in the world, but all they want to do is control and run the show, just like the rest of them. Stop fighting your neighbors. This extends to difference in religion, race, and every other aspect. And this is not just the U.S. Every country has power problems. We are all played, and it's not too late to admit it. We need each other now more than ever. The earth is feeling our growing discontent, and anyone with any sense can see we are all related to the planet, the universe, and one another. When we strike against one another out of egotistical rage, we are striking against ourselves, because we are all one. It's our true nature. So, I hope you enjoyed that. It's interesting because I actually, I wrote this book called Manna from Orion, and it was about seeking truth, seeking knowledge, trying to find the answers to life. It's a totally separate subject altogether, but the combination of politics and religion, it reminds us that we're human. And I think that every election season, we get a little bit of a reminder that life is a very complicated issue. If things are working for us, and we don't see any need to change them, then we're more likely to be passive and let things go. If things affect other people but not us, we're more likely to let things go. But the minute we're affected by something, we instantly need help. It's like the folks who are very opposed to any type of socialized health care. I understand the view from both sides, but it has to be all or nothing. You see, we can't just eliminate social services for the people that need them, yet at the same time continue to be taxed at huge rates on our incomes and our wages, which should not be constitutional in the first place. We should be taxed on profits, not wages. But I won't get into that. We pay into the system, and what we get out of it is a larger military, which we're told we need to protect us. But we have military bases we have military bases in, I think, 140 countries, and there are over 800 of them total. And some people say up to 1,000. So here we have 1,000 military bases in other countries, but we're told we need to spend this money. And so I'm not going to get into the details of where the money goes, but the fact that we pay in, if they're going to give anything back, it should be social programs. The fact that we pay taxes, if that's not going to go to help us, if it's only going to go to defense that we don't believe we need in the excessive amounts that we have, then we all feel like we're being robbed. And I understand how a person would not want to, basically it's like this. If we're going to go from a system of healthcare and education, trying to help the people financially who can't afford it, then if we want to abandon that, then one thing we should totally do is make sure that we stop taxes altogether. And the minute you stop taxes altogether, then it's every man for himself. And after having several discussions with people about schools, they would say, I get this answer quite often of, well, if we don't socialize, schools, then what do we do for the people who can't afford it? And they say, well, each city should be responsible for their own schools. I say, but that's just the thing. You see, even if you're using city or local taxes to pay for these schools, that may work for those cities who can afford it. But what's going to happen is the people who have more money are going to congregate in groups, and the people who have less money are going to end up being forced out to the outskirts, and it's going to be an amplified problem of what we have now, the division of rich and poor. I understand that the mentality of folks who think that we're bailing people out who can't take care of themselves, and if they can't take care of themselves, then tough shit. But I'm asking you, honestly, if that's how you feel, if you really feel that people shouldn't help one another in that way, that the government shouldn't be responsible for putting our taxes back in to help us and the poor that need it, then I'm asking, what's the point in having a nation at all? Why have a nation if we're not a community? Because I thought that the idea of a nation was to protect the values of that nation. So if your values are different than other nations, you're protecting yourself from a possible invasion. But the U.S. has been very active in pursuing turmoil and problems around the world in order for, and it's not just the U.S. military, it's special interests and corporations which are U.S. based, and we pay the price for that. They're making the money and we're paying the price. And meanwhile, we're all distracted with arguing among each other about things that are just ridiculous, such as this Trump election. We can say, I've had several arguments with people. I think Trump is the biggest dirtbag that I've ever seen up on the stand. No matter, even if every single thing that was said about Clinton was true, I still have this, I still could not vote for Trump in all good conscience because he treats people like shit and he has an obvious issues to me that make him an unvalid candidate. First off, he's an idiot. He's dumb, and that scares me. Dumb people scare me, and it's and I don't mean that offensively to anyone. I mean dumb people who want power, and he doesn't seem to know the issues or understand himself or anything. He doesn't see, how people perceive him and gets really upset about little things. Sorry, I don't want to go off on Trump. I'm just making my point of I can't stand him. But regardless of whether you like Trump, like Clinton, hate Clinton, I voted for Bernie Sanders, so hey, what do you do? But in the end, it's all over. We take the gloves off and we let it go. There's nothing wrong with arguing about who should be elected during the election. In fact, one of the most complex problems with this election is the fact that once again, for the fourth time, a president won the popular vote, Clinton, and still lost extremely to Trump. And I'll tell you, there's still a possibility that actually it's theoretically possible that the Electoral College, the voters can actually change their vote. And technically, Trump could be kept from office, but that will not happen. It's only happened a few times, and it was very rare. Hasn't happened since like 94, and that might have been a mistake. But the thing is, once this is all said and done, we go back to realizing that the people on top are just power-hungry people. They're just people who want power. Clinton wants power. Regardless, I think she might be better at handling situations than Trump, but she still is a power whore. All of them are. Anybody who wants that position is willing to fight for that position of leader of the free world and is willing to go through the bullshit you have to go through. This includes all presidents through history. You've got to have a dirtbag side to you to pull that off, or else have something really extreme that's different to people. Or both. But, guess I should have turned that off. Gotta go pick up my son from school in a while. But, that's just it. One last thing, I guess, it's a matter of just letting everything go. But I heard this one comment I got earlier. I was talking on Facebook about this issue with Trump, and somebody said, well, I guess the way it is, in a nutshell, is that Trump won, and she says, my God says that we're supposed to respect authority, so all we can do now is back the president. I said, I don't know what God you believe in, But I've never seen any place where any God tell me that I need to obey my master. I know that in the Bible it does say exactly that. In the Bible it says slaves should obey their masters. I don't know if that's what she was quoting or coming from, but I thought it kind of interesting, how funny that you would say that we're supposed to obey authority, but really it's slaves obey their masters is what I thought of. And I feel that's the way it is with all of them. So my point is that now that whatever happens with Trump, Hillary, the whole office, fuck them all. We're all together. We're all on the same team here, to an extent. We still, though, there's one aspect of it that just can't be reconciled, and that's the values factor. It doesn't matter if we have a Trump voter and a Clinton voter facing off and then they be friends later. If there's an issue where one person wants to deport immigrants and build a wall, and the other person believes in helping others, if one person wants to eliminate health care and social programs and the other doesn't, if one person wants a woman to have a choice with an abortion and the other doesn't, because I'm telling you, these are the platforms that Trump ran on. He said specifically that he wants to put in a justice that is like Scalia, that he wants to do everything he can to overturn Roe versus Wade, which in itself basically sets us back decades, allowing a woman to have a choice. What's interesting is that, all these values voters, as they call them, the Christian voters in the nation, the ones that voted for Trump, they should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. I mean, Trump doesn't know anything about the Bible. I think he even said once that, oh yeah, it's the best book, Then he talked about the Art of the Deal and said, oh, well, Art of the Deal is the second best book. And then he called 2 Corinthians 2 Corinthians. He doesn't understand it, but he's playing on it. But you'll notice in this whole election, nobody talked about religion at all, which was very satisfying to me. Because that's the one thing about Trump. I don't care if he's religious. I don't care if he's a Christian. But I know that he played on that to get people to vote for him, which is kind of what every candidate has done through history. But our values really are different, and this election has opened up that awareness. We know now that we have different thoughts. We know that, you and I may have very small differences about how we think we should handle, the economy or handle socialism or healthcare or the military. But when it comes to actual distance that we have come apart in this particular election, I mean, I'm dumbfounded with the idea that a person would support a guy who wants to overturn the women's right to have an abortion. But the Christians love that, and that was why he played into that. I don't think he really even cares. And to be honest, I think the wall thing was just propaganda, and since it got so many people to talk about it, he kept playing on it. And so, all in all, these people are going to be the ones to have to suffer through it. Unfortunately, the rest of us are going to be obligated to deal with the policies that are left behind. And it's a really sad state of affairs, but anyway, long video, so I'm going to go make a second one because I want to get more specific into something.